Hello guys, how are we all doing? Welcome back to Premier League predictions. Sophie, the international break is over.
I know, I'm very happy about that.
Very exciting times. Guys, because we're back from the international break and your support has been absolutely fantastic so far this season, we're going to set the biggest like target ever for this one, 1,300 likes. So do make sure, of course, to hit that thumbs up button if you haven't already. Let's go for 1,300, seeing as it is free to do. And while you're there, make sure to hit the subscribe button to keep up to date as we start pushing towards 41,000 subscribers. We're nearly there, so do hit the subscribe button to get your Premier League fix. Let's go back to the final week before the international break, Sophie. In our predictions, you edged me 6-5 in the Premier League predictions, so you've now got a 5-point gap, 49-44.
Not a massive gap though, you could close that down in a weekend.
I need some good predictions, don't I? Remember guys, as we go through the games, to share your predictions down below, and let's get into them, Sophie. Starting with a Merseyside derby, Liverpool take on Everton. And this one should be interesting because the way it's kind of set up, the results coming into this. Now, traditionally, Liverpool in recent years, for quite a while now, have dominated the Merseyside derby. Yeah. But as I say, the results coming into this make it a little bit interesting. Liverpool, they've wobbled a bit. They've probably been unlucky, let's be honest, in some of those games. They lost to Tottenham Hotspur in controversial fashion. They dropped points against Brighton despite leading 2-1 going into the closing stages in that one. Meanwhile, Everton, 3 wins in 4 games in all competitions, if we include that win over Aston Villa in the Carabao Cup. Funnily enough, the one game that they lost in that run was Luton Town. So, interesting. Everton, they look a bit better. I think they're going to come and try and make this tight. But Liverpool, Sophie, being at Anfield, they've got to try and put a bit of a show on.
Yeah.
And I think it could be low scoring at half time, maybe 0-0 or 1-0 to Liverpool. Liverpool just get the 2-goal win, in my opinion, over the 90 minutes. I think Liverpool win this 2-0, but for me, Everton are going in the right direction, but I think Liverpool need to win this more.
Yeah, I agree with you, but I actually see Everton getting a goal here. Aston has probably been the best player for Liverpool at the moment, so I feel a little bit bad not giving him a clean sheet here, but he's been keeping them in the game, and I feel like he's going to have another great game. But he does concede one for me. Saying that, Liverpool are going to win, and I can see at times like why you're saying it might be a low scoring game, because it could be a little bit cagey. However, I'm going for a 3-1 win. I can see goals happening, so Liverpool 3-1.
Liverpool 3-1, okay. Right, Sophie, let's go down to the south coast for a Gary O'Neill derby. It's AFC Bournemouth versus Wolverhampton Wanderers, and you know what? This isn't a diss to the Bournemouth fans, but to the Bournemouth owners. Yeah. Serves you right. Gary O'Neill did a fantastic job last season keeping you up. And now look at you. Eh? Going in a new direction, you're going down the table, mate. Wolves look good, Sophie.
They do.
Wolves look good. Wolves had a really poor circumstances coming into the season. It was literally like a week before the season. They sacked their manager.
Yeah.
But they got it right. They got Gary O'Neill. Tried and tested. And he's doing a good job. Bournemouth, to be honest, if I'm going to be level-headed, they haven't been totally hopeless. I know they've not won yet, but they've had a couple of decent draws, and they'll be looking at this one as maybe we can edge it by 1 goal, and I could see that happening. I think this one will be tight, but I'm going to go with the team that have been able to pick up wins so far this season. I'm going to say Bournemouth 1, Wolverhampton Wanderers 2.
Yeah, I was tempted to say 2-1 as well, but I feel like a clean sheet would be massive for Wolves, and I can see them doing it actually. I'm going to say 2-0 to Wolves, just because they are the more informed team going into this one, so I'm going to have to back them.
Yeah, and they had some great results recently.
They have
1-1 against Villa and then 2-1 against Man City before that. Looking good, Wolves, got to keep it up. On to the next one, Sophie. This is quite a big game in the bottom half. It's Brentford versus Burnley, and I do think Brentford should be alright in terms of, you know, they're down there at the moment and they should move up the table, but it's no wins in 6, and they've won 1 game all season. Not great. Burnley come into this with 1 win as well, so they'll be hoping to try and bring Brentford down to their level. I just think Brentford have got to win this. We've seen good signs from them. They led for the majority of the game against Manchester United and then threw it away in the last couple of minutes. They've got to keep their focus, their concentration, and I do think they've got the quality here, even though I think Burnley I think Burnley will be okay this season. I think they're right in the mix, but I think most of us are in agreement that we can see one team staying up out of the 3 newly promoted, possibly 2, and the one would be Burnley. For this game, I think Brentford edge it. Premier League experience, Premier League quality. They need Visa and Mbeumo to score, and I reckon they grind out a 2-1 win.
I'm actually going to say a little bit of an easier game, just because at times Burnley look quite easy to penetrate, and as you said, Brentford have got that quality, so when they're firing on their day, they look good, and I feel like it will be their day. 3-0 Brentford.
Whoa, we're going quite different now.
Yeah.
Both going for Brentford, but she's going totally convincing. Interesting, Sophie. Next up then to the Etihad, and this one is quite interesting, Sophie. Manchester City take on Brighton and Hove Albion. I like the look of this one, Sophie, because Manchester City have been wobbling a little bit, and Brighton are very capable of taking points off top teams. Yes, they lost 6-1 to Aston Villa a few weeks ago, but they recovered pretty well to get a 2-2 draw against Liverpool. Oh, I just think because Manchester City have lost their last 2 games, you can't afford to lose 3. You know, Man City are very capable of winning almost every game in the Premier League, back to back to back, all the way until the end of the season. But once you lose 3 in a row, you're giving Spurs, you're giving Arsenal, you're giving Liverpool quite a lot of opportunities to build a gap. And that's where Man City can be vulnerable if they let a team get quite a big gap over them. So Man City need to win this, but I think Brighton will come and they'll bring their A game. I think they'll look good, and this will be tight. I want to give Brighton a draw, but I'm going to go Man City. I'm going to go Man City 2-1.
Yeah, this is really tough. I feel like obviously Man City are going to want to bounce back. They might have used that international break as a time to kind of look at what's going wrong there. But Man City kind of do this at the beginning of the season. They let teams get the lead and then they just stick it in 3rd gear, 4th gear, and they just absolutely walk it. So I've got no worries about them this season at all. I think they're going to have another good season. They're just having that little wobbly patch that they do have. It's really hard to not back them to win this, but I can't take anything away from Brighton, so I'm going to say a Desmond 2-2.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that would be a disaster for Man City. They can't keep dropping points. But Brighton are very capable. Let's move on to the next one, guys, as we go up to the northeast, as Newcastle United take on Crystal Palace. I don't know, Sophie. Newcastle strong favourites for me, but I do like Crystal Palace. I do like me some Crystal Palace. They are very capable of picking up points, pretty robust. They picked up quite a few clean sheets recently. Got a 0-0 against Nottingham Forest. Sophie's obviously the number 1 dad. I like the mug, by the way. Crystal Palace have been pretty hard to beat. 0-0 against Forest. I think it was the 1-0 win against Manchester United before that. And I don't know if they get a clean sheet here. Maybe a bit too much. Newcastle just score goals for fun. And we haven't really mentioned since their 4-1 win against PSG. They're just incredible. Yeah. And they can... do you know what I loved about that game? The Newcastle players running over to the fans and being like, come on!
Yeah, giving them up. Even after a tackle.
Yeah, it's like a cauldron of noise in there. I'm going to go Newcastle 2, Crystal Palace 1. I reckon Palace give it a go, but Newcastle surely, with the quality, edge it.
Yeah, and it's going to be all about the quality for me. Newcastle are going to have an easy game, I think. I like Palace, actually, and I feel harsh saying the score I'm about to say, but it's purely because on their day, Newcastle are a very, very good team. 4-0. I know, and I like Palace as well, but
4-0?
4-0.
Bloody hell. I mean, it could happen, though. I mean, I don't...
Dan Burn hat-trick.
I don't think that's a diss. That's not a diss at Palace. That's just a compliment to Newcastle, isn't it? Right, okay. I like the look of this one, Sophie. Let's go down to the East Midlands now, to the City Ground. Nottingham Forest take on Luton Town. I really like this one. The 2 playoff winners from the last 2 seasons. Nottingham Forest have climatised really well in the Premier League. They stayed up last year and they look better this year, don't they?
Yeah, they do.
They're 13th at the moment, which is where we actually predicted them to finish at the end of the season.
So just stay there.
Just don't move now. Luton Town have struggled. We expected that, but they are actually 17th at the moment, Sophie. So, albeit they've not picked up many points, they're just above the bottom 3. And if the 3 below them keep losing, Luton will stay above them. This is interesting because Luton are in a position where they've got to start chucking more points on the board. Yes, I'm not expecting great results throughout the entire season because it's the Premier League. If you've just come up, you're probably bound to lose a lot of games.
Yeah.
But you've got to get your points here and your wins there, and you can maybe look at this one and think, could we snatch a point? Forest, despite being 13th, haven't won in their last 4. They've drawn their last 2 games. 0-0 against Palace last time, 1-1 against Brentford before that. Forest can't really afford to draw this one though. No. I think Forest have got Liverpool away after this. And like I say, if they don't win this, then they don't win Liverpool. It's 6 without a win. And Forest maybe move down a little bit. So Forest need to win this. And I think they do. It's the City ground, isn't it?
City ground.
It's the City ground. But Luton make it difficult.
Yeah.
But Forest get through. Forest 2, Luton 1.
Yeah, no, I agree with you actually. 2-1 Forest. I was tempted to back a draw because I feel like Luton, they're not going to set up for the win for me. They're going to set up for the draw, and they can make it very, very difficult for teams. But I do feel like Forest, especially being at home, they're going to have enough to get the 3 points. So I agree with you. 2-1.
Yeah, they've got to win that really.
Yeah.
You can't mess about with those kind of games. Not in the Premier League anyway. Do share your thoughts if you're a Forest or Luton fan. Let's go down to London, Sophie. Interesting matchup this. Chelsea take on Arsenal. Now, Arsenal come into this as strong favourites in my opinion, but I was happy for the Chelsea fans to see them getting a 4-1 win at Burnley. I mean, I didn't see really that one coming. That came out of the blue. That was almost like a Chelsea from 10 years ago when they used to be good kind of performance, and maybe they can use that as a bit of a platform to go on and get a few more results now. But Arsenal, they just beat Man City, didn't they? They beat them 1-0. It was a tight game. 0-0 wouldn't have surprised me, but it's those moments like the ball hitting Ake in the face and going into the back of the net that can win games and maybe win titles. Arsenal need to win this, and I think they do. I think they'll be professional in how they go about it. Chelsea 0, Arsenal 2.
I'm going to give Arsenal the win, but I'm going to give Chelsea a goal. I actually see it being a fairly tight game. I feel like things might have started to click at Chelsea a little bit, which is a good time for it to happen. Rather than leaving it too late and getting relegated. But Arsenal, as you say, they're looking good. They looked very good last season and they're carrying on that form again this season. So I'm going to edge them to win, but I do see it being a little bit of a tighter one. So 2-1.
2-1. Okay, interesting. Right, Sophie, the Battle of the Uniteds next. We'll go to Bramall Lane, where bottom of the table, Sheffield United host Manchester United, who've not really been convincing either, but they did get a win against Brentford just before the international break. I think with Sheffield United being at home, it makes this one interesting. Sheffield United haven't won yet. They've picked up 1 draw, and that was against Everton. They did have a few tight games in the first few where they lost to Man City just 2-1. They lost to Spurs 2-1 with the late goals. They need to keep this one tight. They can't be rolled over. They can't lose 2s and 3s in this one because Manchester United don't convince me. I know they got a win against Brentford, but I'm still not convinced by this Manchester United team. Having said that, Sheffield United don't score many, and I could see Manchester United's defence maybe being the stronger defence, and maybe that has an influence on this one. I want to give Sheffield United a result here. I want them to get something, but I do think Man United grind out 3 points here. I'm going to go Sheffield United 0, Manchester United 1. I do think the Red Devils win this one. They need to.
Yeah, just with Blades being at home, I'm going to give them a goal just because Onana's a little bit all over the place at times. So I could see them possibly getting 1. But I agree. I feel like Man United, they do have the minerals to win this one. So 2-1.
Yeah, both going for similar kind of scoreline there. Do share your thoughts for Sheffield United, Manchester United down below. Next up, Sophie, interesting matchup this one. Aston Villa host West Ham United. What are you thinking?
This is hard because it's hard to go against Villa, but then also West Ham are in good form, so it's hard to not back either team here.
They both got a draw going into the international break. West Ham drew with Newcastle.
Yeah,
it's a good result. Yeah, 2-2. Villa drew away at Wolves 1-1, and I did catch the final few minutes of that game, and Villa were absolutely knocking on the door. Ollie Watkins had a header come off the post. I think Wolves were down a man or two or something, but Villa, I think what it is with Aston Villa is they are so intense. Like when I watch them in some games, I feel for the opposition defenders. Villa create lots of pressure on that back line.
And it's relentless as well.
So I think Aston Villa score a couple of goals in this game, even though I like West Ham's defenders. I think there'll be goals. There's always goals where Aston Villa are, but it's at Villa Park, so and they've got a mad record under Unai Emery at Villa Park. So despite West Ham looking good, and Jarrod Bowen, like one of my favourite players in the Premier League, beautiful, I'm going to say West Ham lose this one. I'm going to go Aston Villa 3, West Ham 1.
Yeah, so I'm going to say a little bit of a tighter game just because I'm going to put some respect on West Ham at the moment, the form they're coming into this. But Villa win this for me. They, at times, as you say, they look so good under Unai Emery, and especially being the home side. So 2-1 Villa for me.
2-1 Villa. Okay. Should we go to the final game, Sophie?
Yes.
It's a London derby, and top of the table, Tottenham Hotspur host Fulham FC. This is interesting, Soph. Can Fulham be a bit of a spanner in the works here for Tottenham? Because Tottenham, they're looking great, you know, in terms of, look at these results they're stacking up against each other. But if you just dive into individual performances, away at Luton, they won that 1-0, and no disrespect to Luton, but it wasn't exactly Spurs' best performance, was it?
Wasn't.
But the most important thing was 3 points, and they did get a red card going into half-time, so they got the 3 points, and I suppose it's going to be a similar story in this one. Get the 3 points. We've already said about Man City playing Brighton, Arsenal playing Chelsea. You know, there's real possibilities some of those sides could drop points and Spurs can open a bit more of a gap up. So they've got to win it. Do I think they'll win it? Yes. I do. I think Fulham are a decent team. They've already thrown a spanner in the works against Arsenal this season. They came back with 10 men to get a 2-2 draw at their place. But the new Tottenham Hotspur Stadium this season is looking a very difficult place to go and get a result. So I'm going to go for Tottenham Hotspur to grind out a 2-1 win.
Okay, I don't see it being quite so close, to be honest. I feel like Spurs look very good. Fulham aren't a bad team, but just going on form at the moment, and Tottenham are just on the up under Ange. So 2-0 for me.
2-0 Tottenham.
Yeah,
okay, interesting. There you go, guys. That wraps up our Premier League predictions. So do get your predictions down in the comments. We've got loads of games coming up now. We've got, I think, 4 or 5 games in a row before another international break. But let's not worry about that for a while. If you've enjoyed this video, like I say, please do make sure to hit that like button. Big like target, 1,300. And do make sure to subscribe to help us get to 41,000. Thank you for joining me, Sophie.
Thank you.
We will see you all in the next one, guys. Peace out.